What was Auburn basketball like when Sonny came? It was a wasteland. I think Sonny's greatest contribution to Auburn basketball was that he gave Auburn basketball hope, gave Auburn people hope. And hope, as Coach Dye says, is the greatest thing you can give a people. And it started when Sonny Smith became the basketball coach at Auburn. He laid the foundation of hope and expectation and intent to be good.
My grandfather was a big-time bootlegger. He's probably the best up in Upper East Tennessee. And my father joined in on the bootlegging a little bit, and we would sell liquor out of our house. My mother and my brother and I would watch for the people coming to see that it wasn't the law, and we keep the liquor in the house. And my mother would get into bed, and she would act like she was sick. We'd put the liquor in the bed with her. And they never did catch us selling liquor. We got by with, they'd walk out of our house and they'd say to my mother, "Ermy, we sure hate to bother you like this, but we're going to get old Greg," which is my dad's name, Greg. "We're going to get old Greg one of these days," but they never did.
You know, Sonny was from Roan Mountain, Tennessee. It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. Roan Mountain's a little bitty town. They got, got dentists and doctors, but they don't know left from right. And he said, I went to the dentist, and I said, "In Roan Mountain, you went to the dentist?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I went to the dentist," and I said, "Doc, what do you do about these? What do you do about these yellow teeth?" He said, "Wear a brown tie."
You don't get hired as an assistant unless you can prove that you can recruit. And I recruited for William and Mary. I recruited a lot for Pepperdine, and I recruited for Virginia Tech. And then I became a head coach, and I recruited any place I wanted to after that. At that time, Wimp Sanderson was a coach at Alabama. And we both went hard for anybody that could play in the state of Alabama. Well, the two best players were Bobby Lee Hurt and Charles Barkley. And we both tried to get both of them, which I really knew that we didn't have that much of a chance because all the Alabama people surrounded his home up there in Birmingham. So I went hard for him, but they ended up getting Bobby Lee, and I got Charles. And I think in their mind, Bobby Lee was better than Charles, but in my mind, Charles was better than Bobby Lee. We would speak together. We would go into these clubs around and pay both of us, and I'd get up and kill Alabama, and he'd get up and kill Auburn. And it worked out really well. Sometimes he'd have the crowd, sometimes I would. It worked out pretty good for both of us.
There were a couple of guys that were doing radio here in town, and they said to me one day, "You ought to get Sonny and y'all do a radio show. You ought to be good." Sonny and Wimp and Sonny. One thinks he's smart, and the other thinks he's funny. Well, I thought I was both, and that's what I tell myself. I'm smart and funny. And Sonny would say, "You ain't smart and funny." I said, "I am." So I said, "Sonny, you're not as funny as you think you are."
Is that what he said? All we did is sit down and cuss one another for 2 hours and go home. We go to the Grand Ole Opry. Wimp and I think we're having a basketball clinic in Nashville. And they wanted us to come to the Opry, and they was going to introduce both of us on the Opry. We walk out on the stage, and Jerry Clower, the great comedian, you might have heard of him, was the main guy that night. We walk out on the stage, and he introduced, and he looked at me and said, "Sonny, I hear you're a country singer." Wimp said,
"He's country, but he ain't no singer."
"Well," he said, "tonight you are." And he hands me the microphone and says, "Sing something." And I said, "Well, what do you want me to sing?" He said, "Anything, just sing something for the fans." I said, "Well, I was thinking, I'm in Nashville, it's Tennessee, I'll sing Rocky Top." So I sung Rocky Top on the Grand Ole Opry.
He did try to sing Rocky Top. He was brutal. He couldn't sing it a lick. When I found out that Sonny was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, I thought to myself, what in the name of Pete is Auburn trying to do, give him a achievement of what? But really and truly, he's been an Auburn guy all his life.
I thought Auburn was a perfect place for me. Everybody says, well, it was football school, but we went like 5 or 6 straight NCAAs. I don't know how many it was, maybe 5, and made it to the Final Four. See, I coached in California, I coached in North Carolina, I coached in Kentucky, and I coached in Tennessee. and Virginia. So I coached a lot of places, but I always knew that when I quit, where would you go back to? And Auburn was always was the first thing on my mind.
We were somewhere and Sonny said, you know, David, I really didn't know whether I should move back to Auburn. He said, I didn't know how the Auburn people would accept me having left Auburn. And I looked at him and I said, and this is for you, Sonny. The fact you're on this stage ought to tell you once for all, henceforth and forever, how revered, loved, and respected you are. You are, in the finest definition, an Auburn man.
I left Auburn because of money. I came back to Auburn because of love.
And I hope you will play that clip of Wimp Sanderson saying, War Eagle.
Yeah, sure, War Eagle.